Why a $200 iPod sold for $40. 4 counterintuitive lessons on the nature of value. In live auction that served as a visceral autopsy of market behavior. On the desk sat 2 items. The first was a large, clearly identifiable object, copy latest book on hedge funds. The second was a small, mysterious, wrapped package. The bidding for the book, which retails for $40, climbed to an enthusiastic $60. The smaller, wrapped package, which contained a brand new $200 iPod, sold for a meager $40. In that moment, the room witnessed a profound financial truth. Value is not an intrinsic property of an object, it is a function of what we know about it. The wrapped package problem is the silent killer of market value, proving that in the cold calculus of finance, a lack of transparency is often more expensive than a lack of quality. Number 1. Information is the ultimate price multiplier. The iPod auction represented a staggering 70% discount off retail value. Why did a room full of the world's brightest engineering and business students refuse to bid more for a premium piece of technology? Because they couldn't see inside the box. When information is absent, the market defaults to crude, often defensive heuristics. Bidders relied on the physical size of the boxes to gauge worth, effectively pricing the mystery at a massive haircut. This is the wrapped package problem, scaled down to a classroom, but it is a fractal of the trillion-dollar evaporations seen in global credit markets. In real markets, this is compounded by information spillover. Markets are often paralyzed not just by a lack of data, but by the paralyzing fear that someone else knows what is hidden inside the box, leading to a total withdrawal of liquidity. As observed, the power of information, or lack of information, in terms of determining values. 2. The atomic theory of finance, redefining the asset. To understand why prices move, we must look past the physical shell. In the atomic theory of finance, a building, a patent, or a brand name is not actually the asset. Those are merely containers. At its fundamental core, an asset is defined as a specific sequence of current and future cash flows. This perspective introduces the Zen paradox. Of finance, you can never step into the same asset twice. Because an asset is defined by its standing at a specific point in time, t, the river of remaining cash flows changes every second. Under this theory, we identify the protons and electrons of value, cash flows, the actual movements of money, positive or negative, time, the specific dates when those movements occur. In this framework, the past is irrelevant. A company's legacy, or a property's historical purchase price, is dead data. Only the sequence starting now and moving into the future determines value. This means a sequence of 000 is a bona fide cash flow, one that describes a dead asset, regardless of its glorious history. Even intangibles like goodwill or reputation are simply placeholders for the expectation of future cash that hasn't been invoiced yet. Number 3. Dollars today versus dollars tomorrow. A foreign exchange story. One of the most counterintuitive lessons is that money is not a single currency. Instead, dollars at different points in time should be treated as entirely different currencies, as distinct as yen and pounds. To compare them, we must choose a numeraire, a base unit of account, typically today's dollars. Adding a dollar today to a dollar promised in 5 years is as nonsensical as adding 150 yen to 300 pounds and claiming you have 450 money. We must discount the future to account for human impatience. This is the biological urge to consume now. Interest is effectively the bribe or incentive required to convince a human being to defer that consumption. To bridge these time currencies, we use the V operator, value operator. Rather than a clinical formula, think of it as a mathematical lens or a bridge that collapses the vast, uncertain future into a single usable number, the net present value, NPV. It translates future promises into today's reality. Number 4. The day of reckoning, when the wrapped package breaks. The $110 loss was a fractal of the trillion-dollar evaporation seen in the 2008 financial crisis. During that era, entities became the ultimate wrapped packages. They were designed to provide a secondary market for mortgages, but as the housing market turned, the securities they issued became opaque. Investors realized they didn't know what was inside the box, and more importantly, they feared that the counterparties, including the sovereign wealth funds of India and China, would realize the U.S. could no longer keep its promises. When the market knows that it doesn't know, it stops bidding. The U.S. Treasury stepped in to back these entities not out of charity, but to prevent a total systemic collapse. Rather than waiting for that day of reckoning, if that day of reckoning came before they were able to do something, it's very hard to put the pieces back together. By standing behind those promises, the government effectively unwrapped the package, replacing the mystery with the full faith and credit of the United States. Conclusion: the alchemy of the printing press. If you can master valuation, the rest of financial management is remarkably straightforward. Management is simply the act of looking at the number provided by the V operator and asking, do I want this much money? If the MPV is positive, you take the deal. The math is the easy part. The valuation, the peering into the wrapped package, is the labor of a lifetime. However, we must recognize the alchemy at play. When the government uses its printing presses to back the credit of the nation, it is not creating wealth, it is shifting a burden. These interventions stave off the day of reckoning by borrowing from the future. This leaves us with a provocative question of intergenerational ethics. Who truly pays for the printing presses? As we back the wrapped packages of today with the promises of tomorrow, which set of taxpayers will carry the load? Is it us, our children, or our children's children? In the end, there is no such thing as a free rescue. There is only the shifting of the hook.